We will keep updating those for you as and when the information comes in. We'll be bringing you the latest on this.
Also on World DNA, Ukraine says it is now ready to accept a US proposal for an initial 30-day ceasefire on land, sea and skies with Russia. Following talks in Saudi Arabia, the deputy head of President Zelensky's office says the US has resumed military aid to Ukraine as well. We'll track those developments. This is World DNA. Let's start with the headlines.
Ukraine says it is ready to accept an immediate 30-day ceasefire in the war with Russia as the US announces that it would immediately lift its restrictions on military aid and intelligence sharing after high-stakes talks in Saudi Arabia.
Portugal faces possibility of fresh elections as the centre-right government of Prime Minister Montenegro loses vote of confidence.
Romanian far-right politician Călin Georgescu loses appeal against a decision barring him from standing in the country's presidential election rerun.
Pakistani troops free over 104 of the train passengers taken hostage by separatist militants in the country's southwestern Balochistan province, with hundreds more still being held in the deadly siege.
Yemen's Houthis say they will resume attack on Israeli shipping as their deadline for the resumption of aid deliveries into Gaza expires.
Canada's Ontario suspends a 25% electricity surcharge on 3 American states after Premier Doug Ford's productive talks with US Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick.
The US dollar falls sharply, hitting its lowest level against the euro since mid-October. Currency traders are worried about the impact of Trump's escalating trade tariffs.
Liverpool crashed out of the UEFA Champions League in the round of 16. French champions PSG came from behind at Anfield to first level the tie and then knock out the Reds in a penalty shootout.
All right, Ukraine has said that it is ready to accept an immediate 30-day ceasefire with Russia proposed by the United States during talks in Jeddah.
Now, in his first comment after the talks, US President Trump lauded Ukraine and said his team now needs to get Russia to sign off. Trump said the meeting with Russian officials is scheduled for later. He also said he was ready to welcome back Ukrainian President Zelensky to the White House and may speak directly with his Russian counterpart Vladimir Putin.
To get the Russians to agree?
I'll talk to Vladimir Putin, yeah. I want to get, look, that's the other, it takes 2 to tango, as they say, right? So hopefully he'll also agree, and I really think that would be 75% of the way. The rest is getting it documented and, you know, negotiating land positions, etc.
Now, Trump's comments came shortly after his administration lifted its suspension of military aid and intelligence sharing for Ukraine. The administration imposed the measures a week ago, following Zelensky and Trump's showdown at the White House. The Ukrainian president was quick to thank his US counterpart.
Американська сторона розуміє наші аргументи.
I want to thank President Trump for the constructiveness of the conversation between our teams.
Президенту Трампу за конструктивність розмови наших команд.
Since the US cut off aid and intelligence sharing to Ukraine, Russia has stepped up attacks on Ukraine's energy infrastructure and seized back land in Russia's Kursk region, which Ukrainian forces had infiltrated. This was hours before the Jeddah talks, and Ukraine staged a major direct attack on Moscow with hundreds of drones slamming into the capital and other areas, leaving 3 people dead. All right, for more on this, listen to this report by Associated Press correspondent Jean Cambrel.
A make-or-break summit today in Saudi Arabia between Ukraine and the United States has ended, and there are a couple of pretty major decisions coming out of this. The first is that the United States is saying that it will resume sharing intelligence with Ukraine as well as sending military aid. This is a big change from what we saw last month with that Oval Office blow-up between Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, President Donald Trump, and Vice President J.D. Vance getting into a major argument in the Oval Office. Secondly, we did see the United States and Ukraine both pitch the idea of a 30-day ceasefire to halt Russia's war in that country. Now, it depends a lot on what Moscow is going to say. So far, Russian President Vladimir Putin has not offered any concessions. The Ukrainians are still holding a piece of Russia right now, the area of Kursk, and Russia is still holding large chunks of eastern Ukraine. Another wrinkle in this is the fact that Ukraine launched its biggest ever drone attack on Russia just before these talks started today. That saw some 300 drones, some going towards Moscow. At least 3 people were killed and others were wounded in that attack. So while the intelligence sharing and the military aid returning to Ukraine is major for Kyiv, the real question remains just how Putin and the rest of the Russian government is going to react to the ceasefire and whether the guns could stop firing in this bloody conflict.
With US intelligence and weapons aid frozen, Ukraine was struggling to counter Russia's relentless assault. But that, of course, now has been released by the US.
Right, from Kursk to Sumy, Moscow's forces, they are pressing forward while devastating missile strikes cripple Ukraine's defenses. Our next story brings you updates from the battlefield.
Russian aerial attacks on Ukrainian cities have continued unabated, with drones and missiles regularly hitting targets across the country. In a stunning tactical maneuver, Russian forces have advanced further in the Kursk region and executed a flanking operation, with troops emerging behind enemy lines in what military analysts describe as a textbook encirclement. Russian forces are attacking Sudza from several directions simultaneously, applying maximum pressure on the embattled Ukrainian defenders. Kyiv's growing fear is that Russia's territorial gains could sever critical supply lines to the estimated 30,000 Ukrainian troops currently stationed in Kursk. The situation in Sumy is equally dire, with Russian forces capturing significant territory in Donetsk and exerting increased pressure on Ukrainian positions that are increasingly difficult to maintain. Compounding this precarious situation is the complete halt in weapons deliveries and intelligence sharing by the Trump administration. While weapon shortage isn't the immediate headache, the intelligence vacuum has created a critical vulnerability. Previously, American intelligence had allowed Ukraine to use the HIMARS systems to launch ATACMS, a longer-range guided missile system, and strike targets deep inside occupied Ukrainian territory or inside Russia itself. Now, with this intelligence flow halted, Ukrainian troops are effectively operating blind. The Russian Ministry of Defense has released footage showcasing the destruction of a HIMARS system inside Ukraine, claiming the attack was carried out using an Iskander missile. The fearsome Iskander-M, a road-mobile short-range ballistic missile with a range of up to 500 kilometers, can carry various warheads including high explosive and bunker-busting munitions. Iskander's sophisticated mid-flight maneuvering capabilities make it exceptionally difficult to intercept, posing a significant challenge to Ukraine's already overwhelmed air defense network. As the conflict intensifies, Ukraine's leadership is grappling with mounting challenges on multiple fronts. The combination of sophisticated missile strikes, territorial losses, and diminished international support has created a precarious situation with no clear path to stabilization. Bureau Report, WION World is One.
Now, UK police have arrested a 59-year-old man on suspicion of manslaughter in North Sea crash.
Authorities have informed that the suspect is currently in custody and officers are taking notes during their inquiry. Now, investigators have started a criminal investigation into the cause of the collision between Stena Immaculate and Solong off the coast of East Yorkshire. The Marine Accident Investigation Branch is also involved in early work to determine what caused the two vessels to collide. 36 people have been rescued so far and one seaman has reportedly been killed.
One of the ships, the Solong, is still on fire after it collided with the oil tanker. British Maritime Minister Mike Cain said that the Solong is unlikely to remain afloat. The collision has kicked off fears of a huge environmental catastrophe.
Firefighting activity restarted this morning, and I'm pleased to say that the fire on the Stena Immaculate appears to be extinguished, but the Solong continues to burn. Although they became attached to each other during the collision, the Solong broke free of the Stena Immaculate late last night and began drifting southwards. Modelling suggests that, should the Solong remain afloat, it will remain clear of land for the next few hours. The assessment of His Majesty's Coast Guard is, however, that it is unlikely the vessel will remain afloat.
Despite fears of an environmental disaster, Transport Minister Mike Cain also told Parliament that as it currently stands, no signs of pollution from vessels is observed at this time.
The Coast Guard has announced that the search has been called off. The oil tanker carrying jet fuel and cargo ship carrying highly toxic chemicals collided off East Yorkshire coast on Monday morning. It has emerged that the cargo ship was carrying 15 containers of toxic chemical sodium cyanide as well.
The collision involved the US-flagged oil tanker MV Stena Immaculate and the Portuguese-flagged container ship MV Solong. Now, the tanker was carrying jet fuel for the US government when it was struck, some of which is spilling into the sea, sparking concerns for the marine life in the area. The East Yorkshire coast is home to protected and significant colonies of seabirds, including puffins and razorbills. There are also significant numbers of seals in the area.
Collisions usually remain rare in the busy North Sea. However, in a similar incident in October 2023, 2 cargo ships met the same fate, killing 3 people. Now, a senior Hamas official has said that a fresh round of Gaza ceasefire talks have begun in Doha.
He also added that Hamas is dealing positively and responsibly. Now, the Hamas official expressed hope that in the current round of negotiations, US West Asia envoy Steve Witkoff would help initiate negotiations for the second phase of the ceasefire agreement.
The first 42-day phase of the truce deal expired in early March without agreement on subsequent stages meant to secure a lasting end to the war. As the fate of the ceasefire remains uncertain, Israelis continue to protest in demand of the return of hostages.
How many other hostages will we sacrifice? How many will stay there? How many soldiers can we sacrifice? Enough. When will the government hear the people? Enough. The people are suffering. How many others will we sacrifice? How much blood will we spill?
Ahead of the current round of talks, Israel halted the supply of electricity to Gaza's only desalination plant. Israel has already stopped aid deliveries to Gaza amid the deadlock over the ceasefire.
Amid growing uncertainty about their future, about 3,500 people have crossed into Egypt from Gaza Strip via the Rafah crossing. The European Union's foreign policy chief said that this includes more than 2,000 people needing medical treatment. The European Union restarted its civil mission on the 31st of January to monitor the border crossing.
Meanwhile, the Israeli military has said that its forces shot dead 3 Palestinian militants during an operation in the occupied West Bank. During a raid in the areas of Kabatia and Jenin, the IDF said its forces encountered several armed militants who had barricaded themselves inside a structure in Jenin.
On the other front, Israel is also claimed to have killed senior Hezbollah militant responsible for drones and missiles. On the same day, Israel carried out a second strike in the Refrain area of southern Lebanon, targeting several militants, this even as it freed Lebanese prisoners as a goodwill gesture to the country's new president. Despite a ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, Israel has continued to carry out airstrikes in Lebanon, claiming they are necessary to prevent the group from re-establishing presence along its northern border.
U.S. Deputy Special Envoy for West Asia, Morgan Ortagus, has said that the U.S. is seeking a political solution to persistent border disputes between Israel and Lebanon. She said the U.S. and France, which helped broker the November ceasefire between Israel and Hezbollah, have set up working groups to keep the process on track.
Adding to tensions in the region, Yemen's Houthis have said that they will attack any Israeli ship that violates the group's ban on Israeli ships passing through the Red and the Arabian Seas, the Bab al-Mandab Strait and the Gulf of Aden. Houthi military spokesperson Yahya Saraya has vowed that all Israeli ships that violate the ban will be targeted if Israel fails to lift the blockage of aid into Gaza within 4 days.
The Yemeni Houthi armed forces affirmed the following. First, the resumption of the ban on the passage of all Israeli ships in the designated operational area in the Red Sea, the Arabian Sea, the Strait of Bab al-Mandab, and the Gulf of Aden. Second, this ban will take effect from the time of the announcement of this statement.
Former Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte has been arrested after International Criminal Court ordered his arrest in connection with a case of crime against humanity.
Duterte was arrested at Manila's International Airport upon his arrival from Hong Kong. The 79-year-old leader had an Interpol arrest warrant against him. Massive killings took place in the Philippines during his so-called war on drugs. The Global Tribunal is investigating Duterte's deadly crackdown on illegal drugs.
Biko, you are the person who arrested me. May I know the reason why? Have you read the documents? Or at least have you read the case at that time when you made the arrest? So that you would be guided to what you should know.
Hours after his arrest, Duterte boarded the flight bound for The Hague, the city home to International Court of Justice as well as the International Criminal Court. Shortly after the plane with Duterte on board took off, Philippine President Ferdinand Marcos said he was arrested in Manila on the request of Interpol.
The plane carrying former President Rodrigo Roa Duterte took off at 11:03 p.m. this evening and exited Philippine airspace. The plane is en route to The Hague in the Netherlands, allowing the former president to face charges of crimes against humanity in relation to his bloody war on drugs.
Human rights groups claim that Philippine police and vigilantes murdered over 12,000 unarmed drug suspects on Duterte's watch.
While Duterte withdrew the Philippines from the ICC in late 2021, President Ferdinand Marcos Jr., who succeeded Duterte, has promised to cooperate with the ICC's investigation. Duterte won the presidential elections in 2016. His war on drugs became most controversial as it led to extrajudicial killings of thousands of suspected drug dealers and users. This policy attracted international criticism due to human rights concerns. And in a major diplomatic shift, Duterte brought Philippines closer to China and Russia, severing ties with longtime ally United States.
And in an unprecedented feat, scientists have achieved the impossible.
They have frozen pure light, making it behave like a solid. Our next story explains about this mind-bending discovery, which in a way challenges our entire understanding of reality itself and light and the way it moves. Take a look at this.
What is the fastest object in the universe? Well, it's light. Einstein formulated that nothing could exceed the speed of light. Now, in a discovery that borders on the supernatural, physicists have achieved what Einstein himself would have called impossible. They've frozen beams of light into a crystalline structure, creating the first ever photonic solid. Scientists at the Institute of Advanced Photonics in Milan have achieved the seemingly impossible. They forced light particles to remain perfectly still while maintaining their photonic properties. This isn't merely slowing light down, it's creating an entirely new state of matter that defies our fundamental understanding of physics. In a paper published in Nature, the team of Italian nanotechnologists and physicists explain how they fundamentally altered our understanding of light's properties. The light they've manipulated has become a true supersolid, maintaining a crystalline structure while simultaneously exhibiting superfluid properties. This achievement challenges conventional views on the laws of nature while making light more controllable and stable. The practical applications extend to advanced optical technologies and quantum computing, potentially revolutionizing how we process and transmit information while opening doors to discovering entirely new forms of matter.
And with that, it's time now for a short break.
Don't go anywhere. This is World DNA. On the other side, there is a major development happening in Pakistan. We will be bringing you the latest on that front. At least 20 terrorists and 12 Pakistani soldiers have been killed and 104 passengers have been rescued after a terror attack on a passenger train in Pakistan. It is a developing situation. We will be bringing you the latest on that.
Also on the other side, Spain is taking a major step to combat deep fakes. The government has approved a bill that will impose massive fines on companies using AI-generated content without clear labeling. We'll get you the latest on this on the other side.
From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
General Bryce Oligingema, the strongman of Gabon since the 2023 coup that overthrew the Bongo dynasty, submits his candidacy for the April 2025 presidential election. In a remote Maasai community in Kenya, young girls are learning more than just academics. They are training to stand up for themselves. And a Nigerian mother turns her crochet passion into thriving footwear business. Watch World of Africa at these times on WION. World is One.
Unlocking the future of finance.
Dive into the world of tokenization with me
as we yield the power of tokenization.
Discover the future of ownership,
where I decode, demystify tokenization for you.
Empowering the tokenized revolution.
Get ready to dive for an in-depth look at tokenization.
Busting the myths around tokenization.
Catch me on Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet.
Token Money Magnet only on WION.
Ready to dive into your daily dose of news?
Bringing you what's trending in the West and all that's setting trends in the East.
And all of this served up with a side of insightful banter.
We don't just bring you the latest stories.
We bring you your talking points for the day.
And while you do that, from the busy streets of New York, I will provide you with deeper insights on the developments through the course of the day in the U.S.
The show that keeps you ahead of the global curve. A conversation you'd want to be a part of.
A place where news becomes an engaging exchange.
We bring you stories that impact your present.
This is World DNA.
Join the conversation.
The Earth is sending distress signals. Wildfires, droughts, and melting glaciers. Can we reverse the damage? Explore the harrowing effects of climate change. It's a wake-up call. Global emergency. Climate Tracker on WION World is One.
WION, India's global voice, the channel that brings you the biggest stories from across the world through India's lens. Now available in more than 190 countries worldwide. Because we believe that the world is one. Watch us in Africa, Europe, USA and Canada, South America, Asia Pacific, Middle East and North African regions. Also available on these digital platforms across the world. WION. World is One. From the bustling trading floors of Wall Street to the vibrant exchanges of Asian stock markets, WION breaks it down for you to make sense of what's happening. As we reveal the key factors behind events, strategic battles, and the game-changing business decisions that shape the world. We bring you all of this and more on World Business Watch.
Welcome back, viewers. You're watching World DNA with Haim and I'm Shivan. Let's start with the headlines.
Pakistani troops free over 104 train passengers taken hostage by separatist militants in the country's southwestern Balochistan province, with hundreds more still being held in the deadly siege.
Yemen's Houthis say they will resume attack on Israeli shipping as their deadline for the resumption of aid deliveries into Gaza expires.
Ukraine says it is ready to accept an immediate 30-day ceasefire in the war with Russia as the US announces it would immediately lift its restrictions on military aid and intelligence sharing after high-stakes talks in Saudi Arabia.
Portugal faces possibility of fresh elections as the centre-right government of Prime Minister Montenegro loses vote of confidence.
Romanian far-right politician Călin Georgescu loses appeal against a decision barring him from standing in the country's presidential election rerun.
US President Trump backed down on a pledge to double tariffs on steel and aluminium from Canada to 50% just hours after announcing the higher tariffs.
Volkswagen plans to lay off 1,600 employees at the carriage software unit by year end. The cuts, part of broader transformation plan agreed in 2023, aim to streamline operations and boost in-house efficiency.
Liverpool crashed out of the UEFA Champions League in the round of 16. French champions PSG came from behind at Anfield to first level the tie and then knock out the Reds in a penalty shootout.
At least 20 terrorists and 12 Pakistani soldiers have been killed and 104 passengers have been rescued after a terror attack on a train.
And the train was carrying 463 passengers in total in the southwestern Balochistan province of Pakistan. According to the Pakistan security sources, rescued passengers include 58 men, 31 women and 15 children. 17 injured passengers have been shifted to hospital. Over 100 Pakistani soldiers were on board this train, out of which more than 30 were travelling with their families. These are the numbers we have so far. And so far, 17 bodies, including 12 bodies of soldiers, have been recovered. 3 soldiers received minor injuries who are being treated at Bolan Medical Complex.
Security forces are working to safely release the remaining passengers. The terrorists, divided into small groups, have been cordoned off, and a clearance operation is underway. Security sources said that the gunmen are in touch with their foreign handlers via satellite phone. The operation will continue until the last terrorist is eliminated.
The security sources say over 50 terrorists attacked the Jafar Express in 2 groups. One of the groups stopped the train at the tunnel. The second was on the mountain giving cover fire. Before seizing the train, they blew up the railway track, forcing it to a halt in a remote area. Now, the train has been moved from the tunnel to the Quetta station.
People were screaming and crying. Some people laid down, so did we. Everyone laid down. There were gunshots and blasts, and after militants told us to come out. But people were reluctant, but we, along with children, came down.
Relatives of passengers on board were gathered at the Quetta railway station, anxiously seeking information about their loved ones.
My father is a heart patient. If he doesn't get medicine, he will get sick. This morning, while sending him off, I gave him some pills so that if he feels unwell, he can take them immediately.
We're desperately trying to contact our relatives, but there's been no response since we heard the train was hijacked in Bolan and passengers were taken hostage.
The Jafar Express travelling from Quetta to Peshawar was attacked near Sibi in Balochistan. The attack took place in Bolan a volatile region that has seen repeated militant activity. The banned Baloch Liberation Army BLA has claimed responsibility for the attack.
Eyewitnesses reported intense gunfire as the assailants targeted the train, creating panic among the 463 passengers on board. Officials confirmed that the train driver was killed in the attack and several others sustained injuries.
Balochistan has long been a hotbed of insurgent activity, with separatist groups like the BLA carrying out attacks against Pakistani security forces and infrastructure. In August last year, 70 people were killed in 4 assaults in Balochistan province, which is in southwestern Pakistan. The latest attack underscores the growing instability in this specific region, raising concerns about passenger safety on key railway routes.
Now, for more on this, we're being joined live by retired Major Yasir Janjua from Islamabad. He's a defense and strategic affairs expert. Major Janjua, thank you so much for joining us on WION World is One. Of course, to begin with, we wanted to ask you about how you assess the situation, the circumstances surrounding this siege as well.
Well, there's been a resurgence of Balochistan Liberation Army or the BLA Majid Brigade. In the last few months, you might say, or the last year or so, they've become more and more active. However, one must keep in mind that this is still an insurgency. Balochistan is a province of 15 million people, and Majid Brigade total strength is about 1,500 people or 1,400 people. So 1,500 people cannot decide the fate of a country or a province. That they think that they demand independence, or they think that they can carry out terrorist attacks and the state will succumb to their pressure. Yes, because of the difficult terrain and the nature of the insurgency itself, operations become difficult. And as you can see today, because the train is stuck inside the tunnel and there are hostages, and there are people who are not yet hostages but still stuck inside the tunnel, and we don't know, or the security forces do not know, how there's going to be a retaliation from the terrorists if they are inside the tunnel. So there's been an operation going on with a lot of caution, because there are ladies, there are children, there are elderly people involved. So that's why it's not as simple as carrying out a raid against a terrorist organization or terrorists. So that's why the response has been very, very cautious and measured. However, up until this moment, more than 13 terrorists have been killed or eliminated, and there's going to be more, because now there's going to be a cleanup operation. The government, the law enforcement agencies, the armed forces have cordoned off the entire area. Mm-hmm. So these people, they have not been able to go out from that area. So they are within that area. The only difference is that they have the hostages. Whether they are military personnel or they are women and children being used as human shield. This is a cowardly act, by the way. In the first place, I must say this, if Balochistan Liberation Army are so righteous in their right mind to think about independence, they should try and fight the armed forces. Fight them in the field.
Major Janjua, I wanted to also understand from you, the BLA, they've made certain demands here. They've, as per reports, that they are asking for the release of a certain number of people. Anything more that you can share on that front? And have they given any list of names, who they want in return? What is their eventual plan after this? They've given a 48-hour.
There are demands, and I'm not, to be honest, this is not the right time, because the information coming on the media can have a lot of connotations. So this is not the right time. There are demands they are making, but let me assure you, law enforcement and the armed forces will never be taking those demands, because if they start taking these demands once, these will never stop. And this is never the case. This never happens. These demands are never met. This is preposterous to think that they can make demands and they can get away with it. But the rescue operation is being planned and conducted very carefully. all I can say is I can't go into more details.
I understand.
Of what the demands are, but there has been a lot of caution in handling the situation. So maybe there is some kind of a carrot and stick situation that the armed forces take, and that can release or ensure the release of hostages. Because as of now, the primary aim of the armed forces is not eliminating the terrorists. The first and the foremost primary aim right now is release of hostages.
We hear you.
So for that, if they do some give and take, that could be a possibility, but I'm not here to make a definitive judgment on that.
Major Janjua, thank you so much for joining us here. Of course, this is going to be a tough one to go through, and as and when we get to know, we'll definitely like to reconnect and understand what more the Pakistan Army is doing to solve this situation. That was Major Janjua joining us from Islamabad.
Thank you very much.
Now, as Donald Trump took the oath of office on the 20th of January, the world's wealthiest were watching, seated in the Capitol Rotunda.
Flush with record-breaking fortunes. However, in the weeks that followed, these fortunes have reversed dramatically. Since Trump's inauguration, 5 billionaires have collectively lost $209 billion in wealth, according to the Bloomberg Billionaires Index. The S&P 500, a major stock market index, has dropped 6.4% since January 20th, with key companies seeing massive declines.
Elon Musk, whose net worth peaked at a record $486 billion in December 2024, has seen the largest loss, shedding $148 billion as Tesla stock lost all its post-election gains. In Europe, Tesla sales have dropped over 70% and shipments to China have fallen by nearly 50%.
Jeff Bezos has lost $29 billion, largely due to a 14% drop in Amazon stock since the inauguration. Sergey Brin, co-founder of Alphabet, has seen a $22 billion decline. This is partly from Alphabet's 7% dip in the stock value after a disappointing earnings report.
Meanwhile, Mark Zuckerberg's Meta, despite initial gains, has lost $5 billion as its stock slumped after an early 2025 rally. Bernard Arnault, owner of LVMH, has also seen a $5 billion loss as the luxury goods conglomerate gave up much of its post-election gains. Analysts have warned that potential tariffs on European luxury goods could further hurt LVMH's sales.
The broader market turndown has not only affected these billionaires, but also raised a combined $1.39 trillion in market value from the companies they represent. With government layoffs and ongoing trade tensions under Trump's administration, the final outlook for these wealthy individuals and their businesses is turned sharply negative. Now, beyond the current meltdown in global markets on US recession fears, a long-term and broader trend shows positive investor reaction to countries that have been under significant fiscal strain.
Or in some cases, an outright crisis. Look at this next report as we dive into why the worst hit nations are now the best performing investments. Take a look.
The current ongoing fears surrounding an escalating trade war led by US President Donald Trump have markets in a sea of red. However, the recent wild pull and push in market moves is a reflection of current expectations in the near term. Beyond that broadly, global markets often thrive on pessimism, with downturns forcing reforms that drive long-term growth. Analysts note that nations facing crises such as Spain, Greece, Argentina, Sri Lanka, Nigeria and South Africa have enacted tough measures, triggering market recoveries. This explains why investors sometimes react positively to bad news. Economic distress often leads to necessary corrections. Often, market moves are early indicators of the long-term economic expectations. Greece and Spain restructured their economies after the Eurozone crisis, cutting debt through spending reductions and tax reforms. Spain balanced fiscal discipline with social support, while Greece reversed a history of defaults. In emerging markets, Sri Lanka scrapped subsidies and raised taxes post-default, while Nigeria cut fuel subsidies and boosted oil production, stabilizing its currency. South Africa tackled power shortages through infrastructure reforms aimed at long-term productivity. Markets have responded accordingly. Stock indices in these 6 nations have outperformed global averages by 20% annually over 2 years, with Argentina and Sri Lanka leading in dollar terms. Sovereign credit ratings are improving and investor risk premiums on debt are declining. Beyond these examples, Turkey, Egypt and Pakistan are reforming under pressure. Even Germany, once a symbol of stability, has introduced structural changes after stagnation. Experts say financial crises often push governments into action, reinforcing the cycle of reform and recovery. Markets anticipate these shifts and often reward economies on the brink, as they sense opportunities for better risk-reward payoffs. Business Bureau, WION, World is One.
All right, let's take a look at what's happening in technology. Spain is taking a major step to combat deep fakes. Now, the government has approved a bill that will impose massive fines on companies using AI-generated content without clear labeling. Non-compliance can lead to fines of up to $38 million or 7% of the company's global annual turnover. This move aligns with the EU's AI Act and aims to protect against manipulated videos, photos and audio. The bill also bans AI-driven manipulation tactics and restricts the use of AI for biometric profiling. However, government authorities will still be allowed to use real-time biometric surveillance in public spaces for national security reasons. Enforcement of the new rules will be overlooked by the newly created AI Supervisory Agency, except in specific cases involving data privacy, crime, elections, credit ratings, insurance or capital market systems, which will be overseen by their corresponding watchdogs. The bill is yet to be approved by Spain's lower house.
According to reports, Facebook owner Meta is testing its first in-house chip for training artificial intelligence systems. This marks a key milestone for Meta as it moves to custom chips rather than relying on external suppliers like Nvidia. The push to develop in-house chips is part of a long-term plan at Meta to bring down its mammoth infrastructure costs as the company places expensive bets on AI tools to drive growth. As per reports, Meta is working with Taiwan-based chip manufacturer TSMC to produce the new chip. Meta is reportedly planning to deploy its internally developed chips for AI training by 2026, starting with recommendation systems and later expanding to generative AI like Meta AI.
Millions of Americans are losing billions to fraud and the numbers are skyrocketing. According to the US Federal Trade Commission, about 2.6 billion people fell victim to cyber fraud in 2024, totaling $12.5 billion in losses. Now, that's a staggering increase from the $2.5 billion lost in 2023. Social media is the top point of contact for these scams. The FTC, however, did not specify which platforms are the worst offenders. Imposter scams are the most prevalent, with fraudsters posing as romantic partners, family members, and even government officials. While the elderly are often thought to be the most vulnerable, the FTC data shows that people in their 20s are in fact losing most amount of money. However, the data also indicates that when older Americans do fall victim, they tend to lose significantly larger sums. The third most common kind of scam in 2024 was the job and business opportunity scams. Meanwhile, traditional bank transfer followed by cryptocurrency payment were the most common payment methods used by scammers.